everyone, and welcome to my video for the 10 artsy questions hop. My name, if you don't know, is Laura. I go by Laura Mixed Media on all my social media stuff, and the way I'm gonna do this kind of video is just have the art, be excuse me, going on in the background. And I'm just going to answer the questions while you watch me draw and art. So here we go. We'll dive into question number 1. What in your artistic career has given you the most joy? And I think that has to be seeing others be inspired by my art. I think that's one of the biggest compliments as an artist, is to have someone else be inspired by something that you've done and try to, I wouldn't say like duplicate it, but put their own kind of spin on it. I think that is super cool and really just makes me happy. And knowing that I've, inspired somebody else to like get up and do something is pretty cool. Number 2, if you could only have 5 art supplies, what 5 supplies would you choose? Now this is a tough one. I think a glue stick would have to be one. Like, does paper count as an art supply? Because like it's just paper, right? So like I don't think that would count. Like other books are everywhere, so it's just paper, so I'm not gonna count that as an art supply. I'm gonna count a glue stick because I could use that to collage, and you can use that to collage just about anything. Like everything that I am doing right now on this background, I could use a glue stick for if I wanted to. So, glue sticks. The next one, acrylic paint or watercolor? Ooh. I love acrylic. That was like my first thing that I ever played with because I was afraid of watercolor because I thought it was too difficult, I guess. But I love watercolor, and watercolor is a lot more portable and a lot easier to like clean up if you make a mess. So like I can take watercolor to work and not have to worry about making a mess. Let's go with watercolor. So that's 2. But you need brushes for watercolor. With acrylic, you could just use your hands, and you don't need brushes, and then you don't have to have a third art supply. Let's do acrylic too. That's going to be my 3rd art supply. But then I have to have brushes, which is my 4th art supply. But that's okay. Like, mark making is a thing. You use your fingers, you use your brushes, can't use anything else if you only have 5 art supplies. The 5th one would either be like a pencil, like a Stabilo all pencil, or gesso, because I love gesso. I love it for prepping pages, but I also love it for like using and stenciling and stuff, and just mark making in general. But a Stabilo all is reactivated with water. I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna say 6 art supplies, because maybe we'll put paint. Acrylic and watercolor both fall under paint, so we'll just put paint for that one, and then we'll get to use gesso and a Stabilo. Ha! Okay, so there we got that one. That's a tough one. I mean, 5 art supplies, like, technically, you could obviously do it. Like, you don't need piles and piles of art supplies, but like, I'm surrounded by all of this stuff, and I feel like, even though there's a lot of things I don't reach for, that I probably should. And it makes you like think about, like, if it was all gone, I could obviously still make art, but I like having all these stencils and pens and stuff like that. That's a tough question. Whoever said that one, very, very good. Number 3, what is your go-to color palette combination or family of colors? I love cool colors. Those are my favorite to where I've always loved, like blues and greens and purple. Well, not so much purples. Definitely all types of blues and greens. But I also love pink and peach. But I think I lean towards the cooler side of those colors. So like you can have warm colors that have a cool like tint to them. So they're not necessarily in the cool color family, but they are cooler than something that is warm, if that makes sense. My favorite ever color combination or like color palette, I have the actual, like I did a project and I put all of my paint that I was using on like a piece of what is it? It's vintage paper. It comes in a book. Ledger paper. Oh my gosh. Okay. Ledger paper. And so that was my palette. And I used turquoise, Dina Wakley Media turquoise, Dina Wakley Media marine, and golden nickel azo gold, and golden Titan Mars pale. And then I used white, and I used this like mint color. I think it's Lucas is the brand, and it's called Mint. And I used a little bit of like a green goldish color, and that is like my favorite color palette ever. It's just sitting on my well, it's not really an inspiration board, but it's like my bulletin board that I have like color palettes and color combinations and stuff like that. And that's like my favorite one. That being said, I love the combination of Titan Mars Pale and Nickel Azo Gold. It makes like this really pretty peach. But I think they're doing away with Nickel Azo Gold, and I think somebody made a combination of colors that mimics it, so I need to look at that because I'm almost out. And that's really pretty sad. Number 4, how do you feel about digital kits, freebies, or otherwise? Do you use them? I make them. I think they are a great idea. I haven't personally, well, I've used some. I've used like Lisa Young. I've used some of her floral doodle freebies or printables, but I don't have like a great printer, so I don't really print a lot of color things. If they are like black and white or just like drawings or something, I'm more likely to use them than if they are color, just because I don't have a great printer. If I did, then I might be more apt to use them. Like Robin Marie has a bunch of really cool printables, and I love her collage paper style. But like I said, I just don't have a color printer that is really nice, so I just don't use them. Plus, I also like for my art to be like mine, I guess, which isn't to say that it's a bad thing to use them. I don't know. I mean, I would probably, if I did use them more, I would use them definitely as like background papers, so I would like rip them up and glue them on my journal and then like layer over them. So yeah, or if it's like a doodle or something like that, like use it as a focal point, which is what I did with Lisa's. Number 5, what motivates you to create art? What is the why behind your art? So this is a really good question. It goes kind of deep, I think. So when I first started making art, it was kind of as like it was to give me like my own thing, like my own hobby, and kind of like as a stress reliever. So I went online and I was looking at different ways to like relieve stress and, you know, hobbies that you could do that like relax you and stuff like that. And art was one of them. Specifically art journaling. It was talking more, there was some more stuff about like art therapy, but I got hooked onto the art journaling, and then I started reading about how you don't need all of these supplies and you can really just jump into it and it doesn't have to be perfect, because I was always creative growing up, but never like stuck with anything because I felt like whatever I was doing wasn't good. And, you know, I would compare it to other people, and it was just like, oh, well, obviously I don't have any talent, so why should I even bother? And so when I started, or when I was looking up all this stuff about art journaling, it was like, well, it doesn't matter if you're good, it doesn't matter what you do, you just are creating art for the sake of creating art and for the like the joy that it brings and everything like that. So I started doing that, and then that was, you know, very helpful in what I was looking for. And I started with like the art Sherpa and doing like her paintings and stuff, which were she made it so easy. And then I found Ray Missigman, and at that time she was doing a lot more of like the art marks and had like her annual challenges that she did, which one of those just ended. She hadn't done them for a really long time actually, and just recently did one again. But before, she was doing them, I want to say yearly, and I joined in one, and that's when I started posting on Instagram. And, you know, because I wanted to be a part of that challenge and that community, and people liked it. And, you know, of course you're first starting on Instagram and you only have, you know, a few likes or whatever, but like I didn't think anybody would like it. I thought it was just like trash, and I was just sharing it because it was, you know, part of this challenge, and then people liked it, and then I kept sharing and people kept liking it, and that made me feel good, obviously, but I wanted to share with other people that you don't have to be talented in a specific way, you don't have to be trained in a specific way to create art. You can just do it, and it doesn't matter if it looks good, and it doesn't matter if it's something that, you know, people like or whatever. You're just creating to create, and you're creating for the sake of making art, and that's the best thing. And so that's what I try to, whenever I create like a class or anything like that, that's kind of what I try to convey to students, is that it doesn't really matter what you're doing, and it doesn't really matter if it looks good or not. It doesn't matter if it's the same as what I've done or any of the other teachers have done, because you're making it for you, and that's the whole point. So yeah. Number 6, what is your favorite substrate to work on and why? So I have a weird relationship with substrates, and I've talked about this before. I prefer to work in journals because they feel less official, I guess. I like working on paper. I like working, like, I'm not particularly a fan of canvas or anything like that, because it feels too like this is a final product and I'm making something that must be good because it is on a canvas. I feel less like that about wood panels for some reason. I think wood panels I like better because they're more solid, whereas canvases are a little more bouncy. So I feel like I can collage onto wood panels better if I wanted to. But mostly I like paper and journals. Certain journals I feel like lend themselves to certain types of art, whereas other journals I feel like I can do different types of art. So like my junk journals, I feel like I have to do a specific type, and my regular art journals is like a little different, and then my other books that I might find maybe feel more collage-y to me, and it's really weird. I don't know what the process in my brain is for what different types of journals mean, but it is what it is. And I feel like other people have said that they have the same thing, so I hope I'm not alone. Number 7, when you work in layers, which one is your favorite? I think my favorite is the part that peeks through. So like in the journal that I'm working on here, I love that collage paper from the very beginning, like the first layer is peeking through all of the paint and everything and adding like some extra stuff, so like you can see words and you can see some of the flower drawings and stuff. I think that's my favorite, when you have like those little secret pieces that are popping through all of the different layers, and are like surviving. I don't know, that's my favorite, I think. Number 8, does where you live and grew up have any influence on your art? I don't think where has any influence on my art. I grew up, my first 16 years roughly were in Illinois, so in the Midwest, and then my next 16 years roughly was in Florida, and now I'm in Texas. I don't feel like I have that much of an emotional connection to any particular place, just because, I don't know, I moved at an interesting point in my life. So yeah, I don't know that hasn't, I love to do plants, as you can see. Flowers are more of my type of art versus like people. I'm not as big of a fan of like drawing or whatever a person. And I do love landscapes. I get inspired by like places, honestly, that I didn't grow up with. So like mountains. I love mountains, and I love water. I like lakes. I do like the ocean, which, has something to do with Florida. But I like more of like beaches are cool, but I like a place where you can walk and like hike, kind of rocky sort of water, ocean area. So yeah, I don't think that has had a whole lot of influence on my art, which is interesting. And I feel like maybe that answer should be different. Like maybe it should have an influence on my life. Maybe I should, like Jean Oliver, she grew up in the Midwest, and so she has like corn stalks in a lot of her artwork. And I grew up surrounded by corn fields. I mean, not like literally, like I didn't live on a farm or anything, but corn in Illinois is like everywhere. So I feel like maybe something like that should show up in my art, but I also am not that type of sentimental, I guess. It doesn't really like feed my soul or anything like that. Which I suppose doesn't really matter. Anyway, number 9, what are your favorite types of journals to work in, and why? So that's kind of similar to the number 6, which is a favorite type of substrate. Favorite types of journals, I like to work in all, so it depends on what I'm doing. And that's, again, like where it's weird for me. It depends on what I'm doing. Like if I'm collaging, I like square journals, and I like, a decent thickness of paper. And if I don't know what it is about square and collage that just makes it feel better. Either square, or I like those little Stillman and Burn, like 5 by 3x5 or whatever little books, and then when you open it up, it's kind of a square. I like junk journals. I like making junk journals a lot, and I used to use them a lot more, and I'm trying to use them again, but it has been difficult for me because I've been in like a certain type of style of art, and I feel like I can't do that in junk journals. It's so weird. Please help me. But I do love junk journals. I do love making them, and I like drawing in them. I also, Stillman and Burn journals are probably my favorite. Usually the not spiral ones. I like the ones that are bound where it's not spiral. And I also like these, they're the Soho journals, or they're just like, they lay flat journals. Those are fun for just messing around with like abstract, or like putting your spare paint on or something like that. So yeah. And finally, number 10, what is your biggest struggle as an artist, and how do you overcome it? That is another deep one. My biggest struggle is it's kind of twofold. So obviously, like my whole thing, my motivation and everything is to tell people that they don't need to worry about what other people think and just make art. That being said, I tend to worry about what other people think. And even though I just make art, sometimes I get sad when I make bad art. Even though making bad art is a part of the process, it's a part of learning, and it's a part of making art. If you don't make bad art, like, you can't learn from it and like try different things. So I feel like I don't allow myself to like make mistakes and to make something that isn't shareable or whatever. And I think that is a big struggle for me, that I need to learn how to let go a little more and not worry about making something that is crap, because that's all a part of the process. And another of my struggles is feeling guilty when I don't want to make art. I've been going through a time right now where, you know, yes, I want to make art, but I also want to do other things. And I'm struggling to come to terms with the fact that I can want to do other things and not necessarily have to make art all the time. I want to make art. It makes me feel better. And I know when I don't, I get, you know, more emotional and more like in a depressive kind of state. But sometimes I'm just not feeling creative, or I'm not feeling like the call, or there's nothing that I particularly want to do, or I sit down and I look at what I have in front of me and none of it feels, and none of it like motivates me. It doesn't. I just sit there and I kind of wonder, well, what should I do? And I feel like I don't have a motivation. And I have felt kind of guilty about that because I haven't been sharing as much on social media where I feel like I should. And I haven't been doing, you know, as much as I feel like I should. And I'm trying to get over that sort of guilt of that puts on you, you know. And I think part of that goes with wanting to be a perfectionist, because I sit and I look at my stuff and I'm like, well, I don't know what I want to do. But instead of just like putting some paint on a piece of paper and like actually moving my hand, you know, and I feel like that's where I would benefit from maybe not being afraid to make bad art and to just sit down and do whatever it is that I want to do. So anyway, all of that boils down to, if I feel like if I wasn't as concerned about like being a perfectionist, which is silly because I preach not being a perfectionist, then I would, you know, sit down and for 5 minutes just make a mess, and then maybe I would feel a little more inspired to do more. And then I wouldn't have that guilt that I'm not making art. You know, it's all it's all tied together, I guess. So that's my biggest struggle, I think. And how do I overcome it? I'm still working on it. I'm trying to be nicer to myself and be like more accepting of the fact that, okay, maybe today I don't feel like drawing, and maybe, you know, this weekend when I have more time, I'm gonna feel like sitting down and making something, or at least I'll have the time to spend doing that. And I am trying to overcome the perfectionist thing. Part of that I feel like comes with sharing stuff that I maybe don't like, and not being afraid to be like, yo, this is what I made and it probably sucks, but like, who cares? To sort of get over that fear, and honestly, like, there's art for everybody. Like, everybody likes a different type of art, so like, if I don't like it, somebody else might like it, and so I shouldn't really be bothered by it, which is what I tell other people. Yeah, here I am. So yeah, I hope that has provided some insight into my creative process and my creative thoughts and my, you know, you've gotten to know me a little bit more. If you have any other artsy questions or questions in general, that'd be super cool. You could leave them in the comments. Some people might not know that I work full-time as a ultrasound technologist, and I balance that, and I balance art, and I balance my family. I have 2 boys, and 2 dogs and a husband. So it's a balance to try to, you know, do everything and also create. And so if you have any questions about that or anything like that, feel free to leave them in the comments. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you so much for watching. And the link to the next person in the hop is going to be in the description below, so make sure you keep on hopping. And I hope you enjoy everybody's videos, and I hope you learn some things not only about us but about yourself and the artistic process. So thank you for watching.